Following. Christopher Nolan's debut feature, released in 1998, was made on a budget of just $6,000. He shot it over the course of a full year on weekends using black and white 16mm film. It runs just over 70 minutes and was filmed entirely on location in London. Nolan used available light for every single scene and worked with non-professional actors, including Jeremy Theobald, who plays the lead. The story follows a struggling writer who begins following random people for inspiration, only to get drawn into a world of burglary and deception. Nolan edited the entire film himself using a Steenbeck editing table. The shooting ratio was extremely tight, around 2.5 to 1, because he couldn't afford excess film. He wrote the script in such a way that all locations were easily accessible to friends and family, minimizing costs. The non-linear structure he used here became a trademark in later projects. Following's narrative loops through multiple timelines, demanding the audience piece together the story. It premiered at the San Francisco Film Festival and won the Black and White Award at Slamdance. The film's tight runtime, precise structure, and minimalistic approach helped Nolan get the attention of industry insiders. Following wasn't a commercial success, but it drew strong praise from critics for its clever construction and thematic depth. It explored identity, manipulation, and voyeurism, topics Nolan would later revisit. The character of Cobb, who introduces the protagonist to burglary, shares a name with the main character in Inception, though there's no confirmed connection. Nolan reused certain motifs in his future films, like the use of aliases, unreliable narration, and protagonists who lose their moral footing. The film was shot chronologically out of necessity rather than style, but Nolan embraced the logistical limits and turned them into a strength. Following was later restored and released by Criterion, preserving its grainy look and unique pacing. It's become a reference point for aspiring filmmakers because it shows how a tight concept, clever editing, and intentional design can overcome almost any budget limitation. Memento. Released in 2000, Memento was Nolan's breakout film, based on a short story by his brother Jonathan. It was shot on a budget of around $9 million and filmed over 25 days in and around Los Angeles. Guy Pearce plays Leonard Shelby, a man with anterograde amnesia who can't form new memories. The film's structure is split between two timelines, one moving forward in black and white, the other moving backward in color. These converge at the film's end, which is actually the chronological middle of the story. Nolan used a non-linear format to mirror Leonard's fractured memory. The screenplay is structured in such a way that the audience experiences events with the same disorientation Leonard feels. Every time a color sequence ends, it connects to the beginning of the one before it. The black and white scenes, shot on 35mm film, provide exposition and context until the two timelines finally collide. Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano, both coming off The Matrix, were cast without screen tests. The film was independently financed and distributed by Newmarket Films after major studios passed on it. It grossed nearly $40 million worldwide and became a cult hit. Memento explores the themes of memory, truth, and identity. Nolan avoids flashbacks and instead uses visual continuity to guide the viewer. Props like tattoos, Polaroids, and handwritten notes become plot devices to keep Leonard moving forward. The entire film plays with the idea of self-deception and how facts can be manipulated when memory fails. The film's final shot was the first scene Nolan actually wrote. The opening credits roll in reverse motion, setting the tone from the start. It received an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay and was later selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry for being culturally and artistically significant. The story's puzzle-like construction encouraged multiple viewings. Nolan didn't include chapter markers on the original DVD release, so viewers couldn't easily skip around. Memento is still cited as one of the most innovative narrative structures in modern cinema. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to start posting a lot here. Thanks! Insomnia. Released in 2002, Insomnia was Nolan's first studio film and the only one he didn't write himself. It's a remake of a 1997 Norwegian film of the same name. Al Pacino stars as Detective Will Dormer, who's sent to a fictional town in Alaska to investigate a murder. The sun never sets, and the constant daylight becomes a psychological weight on Dormer, who's already struggling with guilt, exhaustion, and internal corruption. Robin Williams plays the antagonist Walter Finch in a rare dramatic role. Hilary Swank plays local officer Ellie Burr. The film was shot mostly in British Columbia, with some scenes filmed near Stewart and Vancouver. Nolan kept the budget at around $46 million and finished production in less than 70 days. He used anamorphic lenses and minimal digital effects, relying instead on natural light and weather to create atmosphere. The film's timeline is linear, making it an outlier in Nolan's filmography, but even without a fragmented narrative, it still plays with distorted perception and moral ambiguity. Dormer suffers from insomnia, brought on by both the endless daylight and his involvement in a colleague's accidental death, which he tries to cover up. Nolan emphasized internal tension over action. There are no major set pieces, no extended chases or explosions. Instead, the suspense comes from character decisions, shifting loyalties, and quiet psychological unraveling. The pacing is methodical, reflecting Dormer's increasing disorientation. The title isn't just about the condition, it's about living in a constant state of unrest and exposure. Robin Williams filmed his scenes in less than 3 weeks and improvised several lines. Nolan gave him room to experiment but maintained a strict visual style. The color palette is cold and muted, with desaturated blues and grays dominating the frame. Insomnia was Nolan's way of proving he could handle a major cast, a bigger budget, and still maintain creative control. Critics praised its atmosphere, tight editing, and performances. It grossed over $113 million globally and positioned Nolan as a director capable of balancing studio expectations with auteur sensibilities. Batman Begins. Released in 2005, Batman Begins marked a major reboot of the Batman franchise and was Nolan's fourth feature film. It had a production budget of around $150 million and was filmed across multiple countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Iceland. Christian Bale took on the role of Bruce Wayne, undergoing physical transformation to play both the playboy billionaire and the masked vigilante. The cast also included Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, Liam Neeson, and Cillian Murphy. Nolan co-wrote the screenplay with David S. Goyer, focusing on realism, character psychology, and grounded world building. He avoided using digital effects unless necessary. Most stunts and set pieces were done practically, including the tumbler chase and the full-scale sets of Gotham's Narrows. Wally Pfister shot the film on 35mm film using Panavision cameras, with IMAX sequences still a year away in Nolan's work. Batman Begins follows a linear narrative, but it uses flashbacks to fill in Bruce's emotional and philosophical journey. The League of Shadows, fear as a weapon, and moral duality are central ideas. The production built an entire section of Gotham on a massive soundstage called Cardington, one of the largest indoor sets ever constructed in Europe. Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard composed the score, choosing to split musical themes between Batman's heroic and darker impulses. Bale's voice change as Batman was his own idea, emphasizing the persona's transformation. The Tumbler was a custom-built vehicle with a working jet engine. It weighed over 2 tons and could hit 60 miles per hour in 5 seconds. The film was released by Warner Bros. And grossed over $370 million worldwide. It received critical acclaim for reinventing the superhero origin story and became a template for future comic book films. Nolan's approach emphasized fear, trauma, and ethical responsibility, distancing the film from the stylized versions of the 90s. Batman Begins didn't just relaunch a character, it redefined what a superhero film could look and feel like. It laid the groundwork for a trilogy that would push genre expectations while keeping everything rooted in human emotion and consequence. The Prestige. Released in 2006, The Prestige was Nolan's 5th feature and his second collaboration with both Christian Bale and Michael Caine. The film was adapted from Christopher Priest's novel and co-written with his brother Jonathan Nolan. Hugh Jackman plays Robert Angier, while Bale plays Alfred Borden, 2 rival magicians in late 19th century London locked in a brutal cycle of obsession and sabotage. The film was made on a budget of around $40 million and shot in Los Angeles, Colorado, and the United Kingdom. Wally Pfister returned as cinematographer, shooting on 35mm film with a muted, almost sepia-toned palette to evoke the period setting. The story is divided into 3 narrative layers, matching the structure of a magic trick, The Pledge, The Turn, and The Prestige. Nolan layered the film with multiple timelines, journal readings, and perspective shifts, challenging viewers to keep up with the truth behind each twist. David Bowie plays Nikola Tesla, who builds a machine that becomes central to Angier's final illusion. Nolan chose Bowie specifically because of his enigmatic presence and refusal to be typecast. The film avoids overt special effects, relying on practical techniques and in-camera tricks to reflect the world of stage magic. Zimmer did not score this film. David Julyan composed the music, using atmospheric and minimal cues instead of sweeping themes. The film's editing, by Lee Smith, cuts fluidly between past and present, often without transitional cues, mirroring the characters' fractured perspectives. The Prestige explores sacrifice, identity, obsession, and duality. Nolan uses the rivalry to examine the cost of greatness. Borden's secret requires constant deception, while Angier's quest for supremacy takes a more morally extreme route. The film ends on a morally ambiguous note. avoiding clean conclusions and reinforcing the idea that both men lost themselves in their pursuit of legacy. It earned over $109 million globally and was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, Best Cinematography and Best Art Direction. Though it didn't win major awards, The Prestige became a fan favorite and is often ranked among Nolan's most complex and rewatchable films due to its hidden clues and layered structure. The Dark Knight. Released in 2008, The Dark Knight was the second film in Nolan's Batman trilogy and quickly became one of the most influential blockbusters of the 21st century. It was shot on a budget of around $185 million and grossed over $1 billion worldwide. Nolan shot over 28 minutes of the film using IMAX cameras, making it the first major feature to use the format for narrative scenes. Christian Bale returned as Bruce Wayne, with new cast members including Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent and Heath Ledger as the Joker. Ledger's performance became legendary, winning him a posthumous Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Nolan avoided digital effects wherever possible and emphasized practical stunts, including the flipping of an actual 18-wheeler in downtown Chicago. The narrative is structured around chaos versus order, morality versus pragmatism. It doesn't follow a traditional 3-act structure and instead builds tension through ethical dilemmas and shifting power. Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard collaborated again on the score. Zimmer created the Joker's theme using razor blades on piano strings to generate tension. The film was shot in several cities including Chicago, London, Hong Kong, and Los Angeles. Gotham City became more grounded and metropolitan, moving away from the stylized look of Batman Begins. Wally Pfister won the American Society of Cinematographers Award for his work on the film. Nolan also began experimenting with silent IMAX sequences, dropping all ambient sound to focus purely on music and image. The film's screenplay was co-written with Jonathan Nolan and drew influence from graphic novels like The Killing Joke and The Long Halloween. The themes of surveillance, corruption, and moral compromise reflect post-2001 anxieties, particularly the use of invasive technology. Lucius Fox's sonar system was a metaphor for unchecked surveillance power. The Dark Knight received 8 Academy Award nominations and won 2. It reshaped how superhero films were viewed critically and commercially. The film's success also pushed the Academy to expand the Best Picture category after public backlash over its submission. It remains one of Nolan's most praised and dissected films. Inception. Released in 2010, Inception was Nolan's original sci-fi heist thriller, developed over nearly a decade. It had a production budget of around $160 million and was shot across 6 countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Morocco, and Japan. Leonardo DiCaprio leads as Dom Cobb, a thief who specializes in extracting information by infiltrating people's dreams. The supporting cast includes Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard, Ellen Page, Ken Watanabe, Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, and Michael Caine. The film's concept revolves around shared dreaming, subconscious security, and planting an idea, a process known as Inception. Nolan built a complex structure with dreams nested inside other dreams, each with its own distinct sense of time. One level of dreaming equals 5 minutes in real time, the next equals an hour, and so on. The deeper the characters go, the slower time moves, creating an exponentially layered narrative. The rotating hallway sequence was shot practically with a full-scale set that turned 360 degrees without relying on visual effects. Nolan also avoided green screen wherever possible. Wally Pfister shot the film on a mix of 35mm and 65mm film, including sequences in IMAX. He won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography. Hans Zimmer's score features the now iconic Brahms sound, derived from slowed-down fragments of the song Non, Je ne regrette rien by Edith Piaf, which is used as the character's wake-up cue. The musical manipulation mirrors the film's time dilation structure. Inception explores grief, control, perception, and the blurry boundary between reality and dreams. Cobb's totem, a spinning top, is used to determine if he's awake or dreaming, though Nolan deliberately left its final spin ambiguous. The film's script contains little exposition for such a dense concept, instead using visuals, pacing, and repetition to establish its rules. It earned over $830 million worldwide and received 8 Academy Award nominations, winning 4. It's widely seen as a turning point for original blockbusters, proving that intellectually ambitious, high-concept films could still dominate globally. The Dark Knight Rises. Released in 2012, The Dark Knight Rises concluded Nolan's Batman trilogy with the largest budget of the 3, estimated at around $250 million. It was filmed across multiple countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, India, and Iceland. Over 70 minutes were shot using IMAX cameras, making it the most IMAX-heavy narrative film at the time. Christian Bale returned as Bruce Wayne, joined by Tom Hardy as Bane, Anne Hathaway as Selina Kyle, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Blake, and Marion Cotillard as Miranda Tate. The story takes place 8 years after The Dark Knight. Bruce is reclusive, Gotham is in forced peace, and Bane's arrival sparks a total societal collapse. Nolan and his brother Jonathan co-wrote the screenplay, influenced by Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. The themes include legacy, rebirth, class conflict, and the price of peace built on lies. Tom Hardy's voice as Bane was altered during post-production after early IMAX screenings revealed clarity issues. His physical transformation required adding over 30 pounds of mass. The plane hijacking sequence was filmed practically, with real fuselage segments suspended mid-air over the Scottish Highlands. The football field collapse was shot at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh with thousands of extras and practical effects. Wally Pfister again handled cinematography, using natural light whenever possible and avoiding digital intermediates. Hans Zimmer returned to score the film solo, introducing chanting in the form of Deshi Basara, which became Bane's musical motif. Nolan didn't use traditional CGI for city destruction. Instead, he built large-scale models and used practical explosions, enhanced subtly in post. The film grossed over $1 billion worldwide despite not receiving any Academy Award nominations. Nolan refused to split the story into two parts, insisting on finishing the arc in one film. He also kept Batman's screen time minimal, focusing instead on Bruce Wayne's identity and internal struggle. Nolan closed the trilogy without leaving narrative room for sequels. The ending leaves Bruce's fate open to interpretation, mirroring his approach in Inception. The trilogy as a whole redefined the superhero genre, and The Dark Knight Rises gave it a sweeping operatic conclusion. Interstellar. Released in 2014, Interstellar was Nolan's ninth feature film and his most scientifically ambitious. It was made on a budget of around $165 million and grossed over $770 million worldwide. The cast includes Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine, Mackenzie Foy, and Matt Damon. The screenplay was originally developed by Jonathan Nolan for Steven Spielberg before Christopher Nolan took over and reworked it. The story follows Cooper, a former NASA pilot who joins a mission through a wormhole to find a new habitable planet as Earth becomes unlivable. The film explores general relativity, time dilation, gravity, and the fifth dimension. Physicist Kip Thorne served as a scientific advisor and executive producer. He ensured the film's portrayal of black holes, wormholes, and relativity adhered to real physics wherever possible. His equations were used to generate the visual effects for the black hole Gargantua, leading to scientific papers and accurate simulations of gravitational lensing. Wally Pfister was unavailable, so Hoyt van Hoytma handled cinematography. Much of the film was shot on 70mm IMAX film using practical sets in real locations, including Alberta, Iceland, and Los Angeles. Nolan avoided green screen and built actual spacecraft interiors with windows showing projected visuals to create realistic lighting. The time dilation effect on Miller's planet, where 1 hour equals 7 years on Earth, was based on proximity to Gargantua's gravitational pull. Tars and Case, the robots, were practical puppets operated on set. Visual effects were handled by Double Negative and involved over 800 terabytes of data to render Gargantua alone. Hans Zimmer scored the film using a church organ as the central instrument, writing music based on a letter Nolan gave him without revealing the plot. The music was recorded at Temple Church in London to match the film's scale and emotional intensity. Interstellar was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and won Best Visual Effects. It divided critics but gained a passionate fan base and has been praised for its ambition and emotional depth. The ending involves higher dimensional beings communicating through gravity, blending speculative science with deeply human themes of love, sacrifice, and survival. Dunkirk. Released in 2017, Dunkirk was Nolan's first war film and his shortest feature, running just 106 minutes. It tells the story of the British evacuation from the beaches of Dunkirk during World War II without focusing on a single protagonist. Instead, it splits the narrative into 3 intersecting timelines: 1 week on land, 1 day at sea, and 1 hour in the air. Each plays out on a different temporal scale, converging at key moments. The film was shot on a budget of around $100 million using large format IMAX and 70mm film. Hoyt van Hoytma returned as cinematographer, using handheld IMAX cameras to capture tension and scale. Nolan shot on location in France, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and the English Channel. Real destroyers, vintage planes, and over 6,000 extras were used to preserve historical accuracy. Nolan minimized dialogue using sound, music, and visual storytelling to drive the narrative. The script was only around 76 pages long. He emphasized realism by using practical effects, shooting with real Spitfires in flight, and crashing physical planes into the water. The beach scenes were filmed on the actual Dunkirk shoreline, where the evacuation took place in 1940. Hans Zimmer's score was built around the Shepard tone, an auditory illusion that creates a constant sense of rising tension. He also used a ticking watch that Nolan had recorded himself, layering it under the music to reinforce urgency. The film's editing, done by Lee Smith, was essential in aligning the three timelines, jumping between perspectives without flashbacks or exposition. Nolan worked with actual naval historians and pilots to ensure accuracy. He chose to cast relative unknowns, including Fionn Whitehead and Tom Glyn Carney, to emphasize the universality of the soldier's experience. Tom Hardy and Cillian Murphy also appear in supporting roles. Dunkirk was a critical and commercial success, grossing over $520 million worldwide. It earned 8 Academy Award nominations and won 3, including Best Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Sound Editing. It's widely regarded as one of the most immersive and technically precise war films ever made. Tenant. Released in 2020, Tenant was Nolan's 11th feature and his most structurally complex film to date. It was produced on a budget of around $205 million and was filmed across 7 countries, including Denmark, Estonia, India, Norway, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Italy. John David Washington stars as the protagonist, a CIA operative drawn into a temporal conflict involving technology that allows objects and people to move backward through time, a concept called inversion. Nolan wrote the script over 5 years and consulted with physicist Kip Thorne again to ground some of the science, though the film leans heavily into fictional quantum mechanics. The central concept involves entropy being reversed. Inverted objects move against time's normal flow, creating scenes where characters and environments move in opposite temporal directions simultaneously. The film avoids typical time travel mechanics and instead builds its plot around the idea of cause and effect flowing both forward and backward. Hoyt van Hoytma returned as cinematographer using IMAX and 70mm film stock. Nolan banned green screens again, shooting all effects in camera. A real Boeing 747 was crashed into a hangar in California for one of the film's major set pieces. The stunt team choreographed fight scenes twice, once forward and once in reverse, to match the inversion sequences. Ludwig Göransson composed the score, marking Nolan's first collaboration without Hans Zimmer since The Prestige. The soundtrack was designed to feel both familiar and reversed, often layering forward and inverted versions of instruments. Göransson also integrated elements of recorded breathing, digital pulses, and synthetic textures. Tenant's editing, done by Jennifer Lame, required precise tracking of character positions and movements across multiple timelines and inversion loops. Every sequence was mapped out visually before filming, sometimes requiring scenes to be filmed twice from inverted and normal perspectives. Kenneth Branagh plays antagonist Andrei Sator, a Russian arms dealer who communicates with the future through a turnstile, a machine used to reverse entropy. The film grossed over $360 million during the pandemic, becoming the highest-grossing film of 2020. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects and was praised for its ambition, complexity, and practical execution despite mixed reactions to its dense plot. Oppenheimer. Released in 2023, Oppenheimer is Nolan's 12th feature and his first biographical film. It's based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning book American Prometheus and follows the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist who led the Manhattan Project. Cillian Murphy stars in the title role, supported by a cast including Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Benny Safdie, and Kenneth Branagh. The film had a budget of around $100 million and grossed over $950 million worldwide. Nolan shot the film using IMAX cameras on both color and black and white 65mm film stock. It was the first film ever to use black and white IMAX. Hoyt van Hoytma returned as cinematographer, and the visuals alternate between subjective color sequences and objective black and white, reflecting Oppenheimer's internal experiences versus outside perspectives. The narrative structure is nonlinear, divided across multiple timelines including Oppenheimer's early academic years, his time leading Los Alamos, and the later security hearing that stripped him of his clearance. The film avoids a traditional 3-act arc, instead layering political drama, scientific discovery, and moral reckoning. Nolan wrote the screenplay in the first person to immerse himself in Oppenheimer's point of view. All explosions and visual effects were done practically. The Trinity test sequence, depicting the first detonation of a nuclear bomb, was filmed without computer-generated imagery. Nolan and his team used large-scale miniatures, custom lighting rigs, and high-speed photography to simulate the blast. no actual nuclear materials were used. Ludwig Göransson returned to compose the score, using a solo violin recorded with intentional imperfections to reflect Oppenheimer's instability. The music distorts rhythm and tempo to mirror his unraveling psyche. The film's sound design also incorporates auditory illusions and abrupt silences, especially during the Trinity test and the security hearing scenes. Oppenheimer received universal critical acclaim and was nominated for 13 Academy Awards, winning 7, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Cillian Murphy. It's Nolan's most decorated film and widely viewed as a culmination of his career-long exploration of time, morality, and the consequences of human innovation. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.